Arsenal signing Ricardo Calafiori has more meanings than you think, because there are several different ways that Arsenal are going to be able to deploy him now that he's been captured. And I'm not talking about the calendar. He's a good-looking chap, isn't he? Come on. Back to the football, and it could completely change their system and improve it at the same time. So Calafiori broke through at Roma as a left-back, but struggled to establish himself in the first team and was surprisingly sold to Basel. And when a centre-back plays left-back, we have those preconceived ideas of how they will look on the pitch. We expect them to sort of tuck in and create a three in defence. You think of someone like Nathan Ake, for example, at Manchester City. But I can't stress this enough. Calafiori is not like that. Because this is not Calafiori. Got ya. This is Calafiori. Now, you almost never see left-backs on the ball, in possession, in these areas of the pitch. Never mind centre-backs who are playing at left-back. And this is only one of the many examples that we're about to show you as to why Calafiori is a unique signing that offers a deeper tactical approach to Arsenal. So this is a clip of Calafiori playing for the Italian under-20 side against Germany, playing in that left-back position. Now, firstly, we need to look at everyone else on the pitch apart from Calafiori, and there aren't any real passing options, if we're honest, right? Most of the players are away from him, and so that leads you to think, what's he going to do? Is he going to play the ball backwards? Is he going to keep it safe and simple? Is he just going to play it back to that midfielder? Is he going to hook one on? Old school stuff? What's he going to do? Is he going to go for a little dribble through here? Who knows? But the obvious thing you would imagine is that he plays back and he plays that little bit negative because there aren't many white shirts around him. But the reality is that he does need that. And this is where we see his true value beginning to show through, even at an early age. And it's not the whole reason as to why Arsenal have signed him, but I think it's definitely one. Because what you see is a 6'2" guy take the ball, drop his shoulder like he's a diminutive technical player. And secondly, he has the confidence to beat his man, wait until that very last second. He thinks he's playing the ball up the line. Really does work it very well. Tight feet as well. And then is able to drive. And actually gets absolutely clattered, by the way. Absolutely munched. Look, he's a mid-area wallop. Wow. Poor bloke. I'm going to zoom in on that. That's wild. But that's the price you pay when you're positive like he is. And it's not an arrogance, but it's a real confidence in those quick feet for a guy, as I said, who's 6'2", which is definitely a part of Arteta's plan here when he's thinking about the size of this Arsenal team, which is already enormous. Calafiori's press-proofness is something that we have to highlight because I think it may hold the answer as to where Arteta will play him, but also how he'll be used within a team as well. And the final thing as well, it's not all for show. He's doing it for a reason. If we zoom out for a second, by taking out that player in the first place before he gets taken out himself, he now has two players right here against one. A 2v1 that he has created because of this player having to come and basically take him out. So after only one season at Basel, he was quickly brought back to Italy to play for Thiago Motta's tactically radical Bologna side. And everyone thought that he was going to be bought to be played as some sort of inverted left back or as an elbow left back as well. Which isn't a bad idea. We'll come back to that later. So there were some eyebrows raised when Thiago Motta then started him as a left centre-back in a back four. But those eyebrows were gently settled when he started to show his natural ability as a defender. And this is a player that really does perpetuate the Italian art of defending mantra. And it's almost poetry at times. And it's why I need to show you this next example. So this is the ball that's been played over the top and the Torino striker has kind of come over from the left back. And here it is. You can see the ball right here. And the Torino striker is ahead of the back four, meaning that the recovery is at the forefront of Calafiori's mind. Calafiori's right here, that left-sided centre-back, as we said. And that's his first thought in terms of dealing with the immediate danger, okay? But it's his other mannerisms during this example that make him such a gifted defender. And it is those little things that you kind of look for and you think, wow, that's really going to help you in your career and as your career progresses in playing against better and better players. Because this is something that not a lot of defenders do. So the ball is coming over the top. And what's really, really clever, and I'm going to go to the video here because it's so good what he's doing. If we go to the exact same spot, what we can see is that as we slowly move it along, what we see is the ball bounces. I'm going to pause it there. The ball's bounced. And because the ball's bounced, Calafiori knows he has a millisecond. He has a tenth of a second to assess what's going on around him, because there's the danger of the ball and the play with the ball, but he's also got his teammate who's on his way back, and so what's going to happen? Does he need to cut out a pass? How does he get his angles right? And if we zoom it on that little bit further on, what you see so quickly there, it's brilliant, is just this little look, this quick scan to understand what he needs to do, what is there around him, and then he knows where to stand and where those cutback options may be if they come. This is really, really clever stuff, to kind of have that look and to see what the danger is around you on a counter-attack when the ball's in over the top. And he then executes a clearance brilliantly as well. He actually has another little look there when he's got those milliseconds to look. His body weight is correct, he's ready, and he knows what's going on there. And then the agility that he shows, the ability for, again, a 6'2" guy to show that balance and agility to move his body weight away and just generally have his body weight neutral at all times anyway, because he knows he might have to go back that way. These are all really great elements, and different kind of elements when we've seen the previous example of a player dropping his shoulder as an out-and-out left back. He's now playing as a left-sided centre-back, doing the dirty work in a very graceful Italian art of defending poetic way. It's really, really impressive stuff to see. And it is those little nuances of the scan and understanding what's around you that is 80-90% of defending, especially at centre-back. You often hear that phrase, seeing the danger or smelling the danger. He literally sees the danger. He has that one scan, he has that second scan, and then he affects the game. Brilliant stuff. So next up, it's a more recent moment when it comes to Calafiori, and it's one that would have been considered a problem in about 2 or 3 seasons ago, but it actually suits Arsenal perfectly. Calafiori actually steps out of the defensive line to get touch tight to Pedri and to pin him. Now, previously we'd be worried about this, but kind of the way that football's gone now a lot of the time, that ball in behind is not something that people are looking to do a lot of the time. They're looking to play to feet, and that's certainly something that Spain were looking to do during the tournament, and the movement meant that you needed to be really tight. Now, Calafiori actually gets a little bit lucky in part of this, because Carvajal, who's at the bottom here, he actually tries to play this ball over the top to Morata, who has a one-on-one with Bastoni, if that does come to be. But Calafiori intercepts it. However, the reason that he tries to play this ball is because Calafiori has cut off that passing line to Pedri in the first place. So there's two sides to that. But the reason that this actually suits Arsenal is because of how and where they intend to use him. Now, we can talk about Calafiori. He's a really good player and he's got loads of lovely different assets. But this is Arteta's machine. And how he fits into that machine is absolutely everything. And the whole point of any video that is talking about him with Arsenal. Because it's not just like, go and play, son. It's go and play how I want you to. Because Arteta is prescriptive, whilst also having players who've got that ability to transfer those skills to do their thing. So at Bologna, Calafiori would often step up into midfield, very similar to how we see John Stones utilised at Manchester City. So this means that he picks up these types of positions, which is not the positions he's in right now. You can see him as just that neutral kind of left back. But once an overload has kind of taken place and some players have been sucked in, that means that there are these secondary positions that old school left backs probably wouldn't want to go and attack. But Calafiori's different. And if we move it along, he doesn't need a second suggestion or a second thought to go and see that area. And again, it's in this Bologna side where they've been given that freedom. But it's something that Arteta has seen and I think wants from his left back. So as I say, with that overload created, there's a very clear understanding that he is comfortable and willing to drive into those spaces, and therefore he does. He takes 3 players out of the game and he's able to drive himself and play that little pass because he's got the technical ability and the comfort both to drive and to play in the final third, which is something that, again, with players of this size, you don't often see that much. And this is something that you would frequently see him do for Bologna, and it could be the key to unlocking 2 players at Arsenal. And it's interesting because obviously we've seen this, this is kind of Ben White. Ben White on that other side looks like he shouldn't be that kind of player, but he is utterly capable. And so I think Arteta has thought about this for some time, where he's seen that and gone, well, why don't we have another one on the other side? So how will Arsenal actually use him? There are actually two ways that they could use him, and both of them, I think, work well whilst being totally different, which again is something that Arteta wants. And this is how they line up on paper, but don't focus too much on this because it's not exactly how they're going to be both in or out of possession. Obviously, being that left-back role, I think that's the most likely thing with Gabriel in the season that he's had. I think Jurgen Timber is an interesting one that I think he will be eased in, and I think there's been so much game time for someone like Ben White. I think the ability to have someone like Timber there who can play on both sides or play as a centre-back as well gives them so many options. And it's the same with the bulk of the defenders that they've got there. Tomiyasu, a great example of that as well. But there have been injury problems in those defensive areas. And Ben White has been so brilliant for them. But to be able to kind of bring someone else in and therefore ease Timber back into it after a tough injury is a massive asset for Arsenal moving forward into this new season. Because in possession, I think it could look something like this. I think there might be the old box might be forming again, and Rice being given that little bit more license. I think what's important here is to show you these half spaces, because Calafiori ranked in the top 8% for successful take-ons and in the top 19% for progressive carries last season, which is even more impressive given the fact that he was playing in a back four, not in a back three. So utilising this skill set, I think, will definitely be high on the priority list for Arteta. And the reason that this will work so well is that it allows this man here, Declan Rice, to be as high as possible, which is where he was at his best last season. There's been a lot of talk about Moreno as well, and it'd be interesting to see if that one gets over the line, because again, I think that left half space has been an area of maybe low threat, if anything, but allowing Rice to be sort of let off the leash a little bit could be an interesting one when it comes to the role of someone like Calafiori stepping into midfield. And it also allows Arsenal to have continued threat in those half spaces on both sides. And speaking of those half spaces, I think what Calafiori is also very comfortable in is those areas of the pitch, as we've shown you with that darting run. So it could even mean that Declan Rice is used even higher up and allows Calafiori to actually step into those half spaces. Havertz and Rice, especially when they're going to own the ball, they're going to stay high up the pitch. It will allow someone like Calafiori to step up a lot higher. Jorginho be there to help him. Odegaard has a little bit more freedom, but you know Declan Rice is the guy that you want in the box aside from Odegaard, and Calafiori is able to pick up and allow them to be dominant when those clearances come out. And so you've got a player here that is just so malleable. It then gives license to other players around it, which I think is going to be such a tool for Arsenal if they play the ball into the box, which is something they have utilised a lot. But crucially, actually, as the whole team is higher up the pitch, in Gabriel and Saliba, you've got great players in terms of, if the ball comes out over the top, they'll just go and deal with that. Gabriel's so comfortable on that left-hand side. Saliba's so comfortable from that side of it. Raya happy to come out and deal with these things as well. So that part of it's sorted out. And then you've got yourself essentially a central defender in these spaces to pick up and scrap and win. And again, we spoke about the scanning with him, in terms of a ball over the top, but in any understanding of anticipating defensive work, having him and Jorginho there is great, but then you've got a great footballer on the pitch as well, so that they can really own that area of the pitch, but also give Declan Rice the opportunity to maybe go and get himself a few more goals this year. Now, before I show you the other way that they will be able to utilise Calafiori in possession, out of possession, I think Arsenal will do what they did brilliantly, and they were one of the best defensive teams in Europe last season, in the sense that they will, especially when a team is able to kind of get themselves higher up the pitch, I think it will go back to that 4-4-2 that we've seen previously, where they're solid, they've got a bit of tenacity about them. Odegaard setting off the press, showing that leadership in a different way for them as well. Martinelli coming into that back four. But I think there will be that license, as we saw with that clip with Pedri as well, for Calafiori to really sort of snap at the heels, shut off those lanes, read the game, be positive and aggressive in his defensive work. I have got one question for you guys, especially when it comes to Declan Rice, because I think this other way that Calafiori will be utilised in possession will... it raises a couple of question marks in terms of Declan Rice and his role when he's dealing with a low block and being in those half spaces. How good is he when he's got his back to goal and it's not about him driving with the ball? Is there room for something different here? Or is there room for a bit of a shake-up? Is it one where not every game is exactly the same, and therefore sometimes, he can crash the box, that's fine. But sometimes you can't go through the middle. And also, Jorginho, is he going to play every game? Probably not. So there might be games where Declan Rice does come and sit here still. He feels like he can do that for the team, and Arteta's okay with him doing that for the team as well. And this might be, again, against teams that are going to sit back against him. And what you might see is what we saw with Spain a lot of the time, where you're looking for these lovely triangles between Martinelli, that left-sided 8, and Calafiori, because as we've seen, Calafiori can go wide, he can drive, he can come into those central areas as well, and there can be a lot of rotation there as well. And we saw that with Cucurella, Williams, and Ruiz. And that is where the question mark remains for me. In terms of this triangle, we know on this side of the pitch, that's a wonderful triangle, and that's worked for a long time. I think Arteta probably wants that element of symmetry on the other side with players who could do different things. Is Declan Rice the guy to do that? Is there a player within the squad right now that can step in and, like Ruiz, allow those other players to shine, allow to have that interplay with Martinelli, a bit like Ruiz again, and Nico Williams? Calafiori, I think, can be a huge asset when it comes to that side of the game. But that question for me, is in the right kind of games, and these kind of games when you can't go through the middle, you've got to find ways to go around the outside. Is Declan Rice the right player to be there? Or is it again about rotation with someone like Havertz who steps into those moments to allow Declan Rice to go further forward? Is it one where you have a different player in there? Is it Trossard? Is it Vieira? Or is it someone new? Let me know in the comments down below. But what I do know is Calafiori is very comfortable on bypassing the first phase of a press, so dragging players into these wide areas and bypassing them in a way that almost guarantees secondary spaces in the middle of the pitch. So the dual use of Calafiori will make Arsenal unpredictable, or more unpredictable, but also so malleable in games, meaning that they can change their approach within a game without even making a substitution, meaning that subtle tactical changes could happen constantly throughout a game. It's a fantastic signing. Let me know your thoughts down below.